Good day from New York. Today, I'd like to express the basic approach of the channel in terms of concepts and and it and the channel's openness to hear different views and points of view. And I think you can be a true expert at any level, but we need to maintain a scientific kind of approach, and like some of the great scientists have. And so I wrote this following. Experts are humble, and humility is the best way to communicate. It's always hard to pick a title, and I hope this one fits well. What I say here is the problem I see with the idea of being an expert is that it might tend to close a mind to enlightenment from surprising places and people. Scientists keep their expertise open to new findings and hear objections to their theories. Their reach is broad, though ordered and well-based. It is marked by the humility that a theory is only as good as it predicts what we find in the past and the future, and other approaches just might be better. True experts aren't convinced because they have a way that they have a way and the only way, or necessarily the best way. But they're experts in various fields, and that should be respected. But we all have to keep an open mind. When Einstein was first beginning his education, people didn't think he was going to be the source of anything spectacular. Well, surprise, surprise. So, how do you know you're not going to be the next surprise? I've, had people come on the channel and say, well, you're over my head. There's different kinds of intelligence, and we all have different ways of approaching things, and maybe we're geniuses in our own way. We're certainly amazing creatures. No one should try to say what any other human being is capable of. I think that's pretty hard to guess, and we try, with our exams to let people into college and so on. But and an education doesn't guarantee that the person necessarily knows well how to think, and they do if they get to the level of some of the higher levels of fields of medicine, biology, and advanced things, physics especially. They are expert thinkers, and but some of the most valuable things that we contribute, and we shouldn't be shy about contributing, is the ability to question, to ask questions. When you ask a question, it gives someone who's answering a chance to really take a look at what they're saying and how well they're saying it. And if you don't understand something that the channel is saying, it's okay. We might not understand some things that you have to say. I'm talking about the team. Personally, there are a lot of things that you may know better than I do. What we want to do in the channel is to try and increase empathy in our communications. It's as simple as that, and awareness of ourselves as human beings. And there are all kinds of experts that can weigh in on that, and we hope in the future we will have those kind of people attracted to the channel and willing to contribute their expertise. And we want to create a hug that goes around the world because, essentially human beings are so similar and we have such similar needs, and, we're family, what are we doing to each other? So that gets into politics. So, this is also a political channel. Yeah, because politics is how we conduct ourselves between ourselves, and how we govern ourselves, and actually how we aim toward a higher virtue. That's important. When it comes to politics, there's this basic pattern that the channel talks about, and in very understandable language. It begins with a pattern of communication that you can use in your imagination, taking the role of your inner artist, the creator of all you imagine, and using that imaginative ability to care about oneself and others in a feeling way, in an empathetic way, which means actually listening carefully and understanding where the other person is coming from, and trying to feel what they feel. That's the idea about the empathy in this channel, is that, you're trying to feel what you yourself feel. We can get out of touch with our own feelings and not really understand ourselves as well as we think we do. And I think there's a lot of evidence for that. I'd love to hear the comments about that from experts out there. So if you want to help the channel, please consider being on a Zoom call with some of our team members and present your ideas. That would be a wonderful thing. Of course, the channel is also about democracy, because it's where you have a democracy going on. That's where you have human rights considered. It's just how things are, and preserving that kind of freedom of speech and collaboration, effective collaboration. That's very important, and it only happens when we really care about each other, and we're aiming toward greater objectivity and creativity and compassion. And I've mentioned one of the roles that we have. Here's the pattern. There's the inner artist. That's your creative empathy. You have within you your own inner counselor. I like to joke that if I give myself a good talking to, then maybe other people won't need to do that. But yeah, your inner counselor, they cares about you in an objective way, and a part of you that is a caregiver, that is compassionate toward you in a way that is very open to your feelings and your thoughts. Compassion is a large part of it is in how we listen, how open our heart is. And it's these perspectives all communicate with our emotional selves. All right. Undergirding this, this is when it gets into the some of the interesting things about the ego, is our infant mind, which is another perspective. And that's a very personal sort of thing, or it can be. It's connecting with abilities we have that don't depend on communicating with language. It's still there's communication going on. And we have some techniques that help a person move into that space, and the things that are used in order to feel what you feel are three things that evolved into the forms of empathy that I'm talking about. You have focus, the ability to focus on your feelings. Now, that's something that doesn't necessarily have to have language. And that ability to focus in social circumstances and with a social brain develops into objectivity, the ability and skill to be objective in our thinking, which does involve language quite a bit. And there's the ability to be at play. And this is very important. That's something that little babies do, and they can be very playful. Creativity is what that develops into, and that's the ability to create play, to control it, and to bring about good results from this playfulness. Now, another ability you have in your infant mind is your infant perspective, is the expression of your feelings. And that develops into, by necessity, in a social animal like ourselves, into compassion, which is the safety to feel and express. You know, so that requires some language ability and some communication. It helps a person to feel, like I said, safe to express feelings honestly. Okay? So the problem that we have from the view of the channel is a lack of empathy and this kind of awareness. And so how do you communicate with people who really do not agree with you at all? You have to understand the other person. You have to work within their comfort zone. And, you need to apply very artfully objective and compassionate communication to their feeling child, their language kid. It's the kid in us, politically speaking, that is most that represents business and social affairs. Because business is about trade. It's where the biggest impact of the drama and the experience of our lives hits. It's similar to the kid inside you. And it is helped by a balance of voices from the media, which is more of a creative caring that comes at us from different perspectives and helps us to be playful with our views. So, it's like we're not taking ourselves so seriously and we are able to play with ideas and perspectives. That's a very important balance point. Another balance point in this communication is the government. That's like your inner counselor, the government, which should use objective approaches to best meet the needs of the people. And then that means enhancing effective trade. The business of all politics is trade. The business of politics is always business, trade. And compassion needs to influence our trade, our business perspective, so that we have a broad enough outreach and we're helping enough people so that we're not, oppressing a large group of people. That's very destabilizing, of course. And that's represented by church, I think, or extended family organizations of any kind. I mean, it could be atheist, Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, whatever, Islamic, in what some people in the West call Hinduism, which is actually Dharma Shastra. But all of these extended family types of organizations are very important as a balance point, an expression of the caregiver inside you, only in a social way, in a social institution of sorts. So all of these things, these three things, communicating with business, is the political side of this channel. Are things in balance? It's not saying who's right, who's wrong, but are these things in balance? Because an imbalance means that the needs of the people are not being taken care of well. If you don't have that concept of balance, and actually the listening to the people who have the needs that need to be addressed, you don't have democracy. You have an imbalance, and some countries are more democratic, some less. But we can have a communication between ourselves, and a lot of it's going to hinge on effective trade. We don't need to be at war with one another. We don't need to be shooting people because they're rich. This is, again, you recently it's been talked about as the destabilization in the United States and Europe seems, and Canada, seems to be coming from two things: an uncivilizing of things, because you're not meeting people's needs, you're going to make them angry, you're going to make them upset, and fear and anger are these defensive kind of things are coming from a lack of faith and love. Faith and love that we need to increase. The faith and love means that your needs are going to be met, and the needs of your family, the needs of what you love, that these needs are going to be met. So it needs to be a balance. And we've been talking about the other thing is They talk about the uncivilizing effect of what's happening. And the other thing is the pitchfork view that some among the wealthy have expressed that they're afraid of pitchforks surrounding them. What about just paying their fair share of taxes? Shooting people should be the last thing that any country or person wants to do. That's harms the faith and love, the love flow that I talk about sometimes. It sends a rippling effect. It's wow. I'm very impressed and really love our FBI and our CIA. No group is perfect, but these guys have done great things to keep our democracy alive and thriving in a difficult world. And disrespect toward them is something I would not say, from my political perspective, is a good direction to go in. It's very destabilizing. So, again, these two things. Well, the pitchfork problem, it's this anger and this fear toward a group of people. That's what your conspiracy theories spring from. There's always this anger and this fearfulness, and somebody is out to get me, and there's no human heart in this group or that group. They're just out for the money, and all of this sort of thing, which is nonsense. It's just really, the pharmaceutical companies only want money. They don't care about curing disease. That's wow. None of us are perfect, but we all have a human brain, and the brains are pretty similar. And it involves these things I'm talking about. That's human nature. It's not something we all have. You have an inner artist, an inner counselor, an inner caregiver, and an inner child that benefits from these kinds of communications. Yeah. So politically, you gotta understand. If you look, there's I've said it so many times. There's some people can handle a lot of money. They're effective with it. They give back to the community. They're a big plus to society, and more power to them. But the unnecessary accumulation of wealth and power is whatever destabilizes democracy. You see? And again, these balances are very important. And, the way I try to communicate to Elon, that is one smart, adorable, cute kid to me. I'm 71, so he's among those that I consider very young. And I love young people. I love they're out there. I'm imperfect, but kids will tell you that. But I do have compassion for you, and it's your world. I won't be around that much longer, and but it's up to those of us who are at the end of life to do all we can to get this message of love out to a very wrangling group of human beings. We often our own worst enemy, and yet I believe and have utter faith that a good communications in these areas can save us. But when I address this guy, and I would suggest this in any case, uh, just as these perspectives educate the inner child, um, talk to the kid in people, right? And ultimately, that's what you're talking to. The last things that are going on is, um, I think the interests in politics are very, no matter how smart we are, we tend to knee-jerk response to big issues. We're not necessarily that thoughtful or that knowledgeable when we go to vote. We're reacting to the price of eggs or something. And so there's a certain amount of selfishness that's involved with your inner child. And that's what happens is to groups of people, and sometimes as it gets down to a very reactive, childlike state. And that's one of the things you got to address in democracy. You got to make sure people are educated about democracy and how it works and why we need it from day one in all our education systems. And so, how do you address people making a mistake, voting for people that are not really even in their own interests? You don't scold and carry on. And this is a part of the thing, punishing attitudes are not the way to go. It just makes a hypocrite out of everybody. Instead of punishing attitudes, we need healing ones. And we need to address, when we talk to people that disagree with us, we have to understand the kid in them. And the comfort zone of that person, or that inner child in that person. So there are a lot of folks, and we've all had what I call damaged faith in our lives, and that creates painful trauma that needs to be recognized and dealt with. I think that a therapist can be an anchor to help people to get this kind of conversation going inside themselves so that they can heal. Nobody heals well outside of their comfort zone, and nobody votes well outside of their comfort zone. So you have to find common ground, and you have to work from there. And you have to genuinely recognize that you love that other person because they're a human being. And when brains are broken, we need to, if they're a danger to the rest of society, that's when you have to isolate them. But you should be trying to heal their mind. You need to make sure that when they're released, they're ready to function properly. Just slapping people around, or sitting them in a corner in isolation isn't going to help that process. So one of the things I would like to do is to see this kind of approach used in our prisons to help give them hope and to help them heal their minds, give them a real connection, because trauma creates the dangers to democracy, because it's damaged faith and love. It means less faith and trust is there in the individual toward sources of caring and wisdom and artfulness. The trust is not there. And that means the help can come through. And not only that, but the brain takes needs and feelings that were once, too painful to feel, or too, you were helpless to feel. You were in a helpless situation. I mean, that kind of painful helplessness is at the root, I believe, of all trauma, and it's damaged faith and love. So you need to unlearn that helplessness, but it has to happen within a certain comfort zone. It means these kind of approaches need to be delivered in a way that actually intends to comfort, and but does so gingerly and with care. Because all of the things that I've mentioned, that can trigger that old pain in people. I mean, because they lack that trust. And so if you're trying to help them with your objectivity or your creativity or your compassion, there are blocks going on there. And that can get in the way of real and productive communication, period. So how do you deal with them? This is a question that we have to deal with in order to save humanity. And that means that's why we talk about um, increasing faith and love and putting a little more humanity into humanity. Because if we don't, then nothing works. So the other problem with having trauma is that when a need is too painful to feel because you were too helpless and you can't, your brain says, can't keep keeping you in this anxiety state. We got to comfort you in a symbolic way. So your needs there become things that are symbolic of the need. They're distanced from the need and symbolic of it. And that means wealth and power and this sort of thing. And they can be very addictive sort of things because you were powerless and you now crave power, and no limit to your personal power that you can see. You don't want to be in a balanced state with the rest. You want to be the power because you're hurting. That person is hurting. Trump is a hurting person. Anybody craving that kind of power, their faith and love has been damaged. Yeah, they need healing. They need help, and they need to be kept from stirring up any more trouble in a very troubled world. And that's how our Justice Department should function. Yeah, you can't fill up on symbols, is the point. And so, and remember, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Why? Because you're stepping outside that faith and love. You're saying, "I'm it." It's like, I'm God. You're not. So whatever, however you consider God, the consciousness of the universe in whatever form. Now that's getting very speculative. So far I've been pretty brass tacks, I think, what I'm saying. So I try not to drift too far away. The practices that involve the infant mind are there so that an individual doesn't have this idea that they are this person that society told them they are, or the conditions told them they are, and that they're incapable of change. This is me, this is who I am. When you go into the infant mind, you realize that there was a time when you had no self-concept. And wow, look at the power of that, these babies are little geniuses. I mean, they pick up languages. They can pick up three or four, if you treat them right. So, what is this channel about? It's about that basic balance that I'm talking about, is the power of these perspectives that are so helpful in connecting us to virtue and to protection of our democracy. That's it. I know a lot of people in the Midas Touch and some of these groups, and I don't know, they don't have this particular perspective. But I'm saying that this is a core perspective to defending our democracy and healing the damaged faith in the world. That's like, well, how do you apply this, like, to Gaza and things like that? You go in with U.S.-led troops if you want to, get involved. You go in and you're strong, you're able to protect yourselves, but your whole purpose is to save the children, to make sure everybody is eating. And we're having this problem with Netanyahu, who's very much overreacting to some of the threats that that their opponents suffered from. And this comes from a long history of feeling a lot of hatred, which is a sad thing. We shouldn't be hating on any group of people in that remorseless kind of evil way, so come on. So you come in, you can come in with force, and you can, come in force to keep the peace. And that's why we had the UN. And I don't know, where's the UN troops? We're the people with heart and love going in to these situations and protecting the innocents. The other people are out there trying to kill each other off, because they have a disagreement. Oh my gosh. But where's the UN? That was actually the purpose of the United Nations, is to bring the hearts of people around the world together to do the right things. And, I think we need to have a very strong UN force that brings the world together. That's my opinion. But what is your opinion on all of these things that I've said? And remember, you can have a different opinion, and that's fine. But I would suggest a lot of times, that before we communicate well, we have to do some practices which involve inner communication, and in an empathetic way, empathetic inner mind communication. And then that can open the doors to greater communication, I think. I know that I've had experiences with people learning these things and really having great and tremendous insights almost immediately. And I have great faith in it. You'll see all kinds of connections here once you see that pattern, you think about it. There are all kinds of connections to how we process pain. What is a healing uh, uh, comfort zone. How do you define that? How do we discern that? How do we make sure that we have approaches that can help people that do not take them outside of their comfort zone? That's one of the things where, I like this mystic approach, which is, it's about training and teaching someone, because only the person really knows, is in touch with their comfort zone. You can guess, you can help, you can be a good friend, you can be a knowledgeable therapist, but ultimately it's the person that's important there is the person who's needing that kind of communication. And when they do that kind of communication, it leads to independence. Right? You're looking at the inner child, and you're giving their inner child these skills, so they can grow and be more mature and in very virtuous, good ways. That's it. So that there should be a growing independence. And problem that I see is a lot of times is like, especially with ineffective kind of therapies, is that the person is dependent forever. Going back, again and again and again, to get this extra help. And what I think is when you get the extra help and you're actually, and if it's working, you're becoming a more mature individual and a more virtuous individual. And that means you should step into the shoes of the helper. You need to be an enlightened helper in the process, and in your own way, in your own profession, in your own ways of handling things. You should be, if there's any therapist involved or trainer, as I promote it, it's about growing. And the people who help children grow are parents, right? And they often need to grow too. So humility is always back to humility again. And sometimes kids can say some of the most enlightening things, So my question is, what are your opinions here? Will you subscribe to the channel and try to help it? It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. Will you participate in this process, which I hope this perspective can be something that brings the world together. It's not just about the United States, although the 3 team members so far are all U.S. born and citizens of the United States. But this hug needs help. We need to bring the whole world together into it. And that's up to you. This is a channel that's all about that. And I think it's it's very needed. And I'm not seeing it done anywhere else. I hope that changes. If you want to have another channel, that's in your language, yeah, let's unite together. There are more and more ways to communicate with the high tech that we have today and the different languages. And yeah, let's try to work together. And your expertise, whatever it is, can be very valuable in this approach. When I say progressive, I'm talking about pro-progress. It's not right, it's not left, it's right on. Because the right's about being more conservative, management, being more liberal, and quite frankly, there's some things that we need to be more conservative about, and some things we need to be more liberal about. And I don't see the battle there. I see a need for the two sides to communicate. And neither side should be promoting an imbalance in these perspectives. No, absolutely not. Because that unravels democracy. And that we cannot have. You know, we've got to increase the democratic outreach around the world. So that means investing in people and in movements that save our children. Oh, for heaven's sakes, enough with the wars that they're carrying on. You know, China's had to step in and say to Russia, hey, just stop this saber rattling, you know, about nuclear weapons. But they've also said some things like that. And we say it in a kind of backdoor kind of way, like, yeah, we are ready for you. I mean, for heaven's sakes, wouldn't you rather sit down and have diplomacy and communicate love and better trade rather than shipping your kids off to kill themselves fighting each other? Really? That's despicable. It really is. And, you know, if we can't outgrow that, we're not going to be around. Let's face it. We've got to do better. And that means being more loving. So if you've got a loving thing to say or whatever, I mean, you know, please help the channel out, you know. Send your loving videos. You know, let's work together. And that's the end of what I have to say today. I hope that it meant something to you. And whatever you understood of it, well, then our intelligences have crossed the barrier. And we're on somewhat of the same page. So I'd like to hear more about that. I'd like to hear disagreements that you might have. Yeah. But let's focus on the love. That's the source of our virtues. That's the source of everything. Love really is the answer. You have people going around this is, you know, their spiritual leader is the answer. Love is the answer. You know, the sectarian, divisive kind of thing. The religion that supports love, that's the good ones. Yeah, and they all do to some degree. So let's emphasize that. Let's let the love bring us together. Otherwise, you know, united we stand, divided we fall. And that goes for all humanity. I really appreciate all that you've done, because I'm assuming a lot of you have done some really good things for the world in terms of love. Maybe you're a grandparent, a good one, a good parent, you know, whatever. Tell us about that, because love is the answer. Everything that I'm saying is just about love, meeting human need. That's it. So I hope that isn't going over anybody's head. And I'm a real dummy, and I get it. Yeah. I think we all get it, don't we? Well, as I started to say, this is the end. Until next time, please subscribe, please comment, like, and share. May the love in you light your way.